Exposed a hidden clause, how I uncovered the amazing truth behind the CEO's Heir's firing. Jack Thompson's mind raced as he stared at his computer screen, the headline glaring back at him like a flaming warning. This morning, the office buzzed with the unraveling rumor that Emily Harrison had been fired. Who was he to make such a bold declaration when the whispers around the break room already turned sour? Yet, the injustice gnawed at him, igniting a grenade of internal conflict. Would he risk his career to expose the truth behind the daughter of the CEO, a woman he had never laid eyes on, yet whose name was now lodged painfully in his throat? His heart thudded like a drummer at a rock concert, each beat resounding the moral dilemma before him. Jack had climbed from humble beginnings to become a solid cog in the Harrison wheel, but would putting integrity over ambition shatter his entire world? The thought surged through him, dampening the whirlwind excitement of working for a corporate titan. He paused, glancing out at the glass facade reflecting his conflicted image. Beside the illusion of elegance and gleaming success lay the reality of ambition's darker side. Sifting through company files felt as foreign DNA in his bloodstream. Each page he turned ripped away at his conscience, exposing the monstrous truth lurking behind the polished veneer. Emily's termination was no accident, but rather an orchestrated coup by power-thirsty individuals desperate to protect their throne. Those hidden clauses in the bylaws were far more than legal jargon. They were weapons against justice. Fragments of his uncle's voice filled his mind. Integrity costs you at first, but it pays in dividends for a lifetime. Jack could feel his stomach constrict as sweat trickled down his spine. Could he truly bear the weight of choosing the truth over his own security? Pressure swelled around him as each second dragged into eternity. The clock ticked down toward a critical board meeting that could very well lay the fate of not just Emily's future, but his own. In shadowy corners of his mind, the mantra of self-preservation battled furiously with the growing sense of indignation. Wouldn't the world have been different if powerful names didn't dictate paths? Wouldn't it be meaningful to stand for what is right? Yet, in the flickering lights of the corner office, Jack saw a future dimming as the board members cloaked themselves in practiced smiles and corporate jargon. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Jack stood at the edge of the boardroom, spine straight and palms clammy, drowning in doubt. What if his fears were true? As he took a deep breath and stepped forward, the board members turned to him, shock painting their faces. This wasn't merely about a job. He felt it deep in his bones, igniting a fire in his chest. His voice wavered slightly as he began to unravel the jagged threads of deceit. Each word cut through the silence like glass shattering in slow motion. As he revealed the manipulation at play, the atmosphere grew thick with tension, the realization of profound betrayal rippling through the polished walls. Suddenly, the CEO's disdainful glare pierced through him like an arrow. You don't understand the stakes, Jack. The threat hung heavy in the air, and he felt it settle around his throat like a noose. In that uncertain moment, Jack's heart pounded louder than ever, leaving him teetering on a precipice. The shadows of power loomed larger, and defeat flickered tantalizingly close. His breath hitching at the enormity of his choice. A dreadful question loomed, tangling within him. Had he chosen the right side, or had he sealed his own fate? The moments after Jack's revelation hung in the air like the oppressive weight of a thundercloud, filled with unspoken threats and swirling tension. The boardroom remained deathly silent, a cacophony of hidden emotions trapped beneath the surface. The eyes of his colleagues pierced through him, oscillating between disbelief and concern, reality fractured by his unexpected bravado. I may not understand the stakes, Jack finally replied, his voice steadied despite the chaos in his mind, but I do understand what it means to stand by your principles. Emily didn't deserve this. The words tasted foreign, each syllable an incantation unlocking his latent courage. His body quaked, battling the instinct to retreat. In that charged space, he felt the board members reposition themselves, uneasy glances exchanged as the CEO's features hardened further. "This isn't just about a termination. This is about the legacy of the Harrison family," he retorted, his tone firm but laced with irritation. Jack's gaze remained locked on the CEO, silently challenging him. A realization dawned. This wasn't merely a confrontation with authority, it was a profound test of his character and direction. Jack reflected on his journey, each ascendant step through the company tinted by a gradual realization of the moral currency one accumulates, disparate from the mere accumulation of wealth and power. Did he outline a trajectory for himself that illuminated truth over convenience? The atmosphere thickened, a battleground of ideologies interplaying within polished walls. As he sat back down, uncertainty flooded his thoughts. Had he just painted a target on his back? The prospects of repercussions flared sharply in his mind, but so too did the possibilities of forging a path toward genuine integrity. Days turned into a blur as Jack plummeted into the aftermath of the board meeting. Employee murmurs rose and fell, leaving traces of divided loyalties and whispered support. He found sanctuary in the workroom, sifting through archives and press releases in search of leverage, yet with every discovery, the stakes rose. It showcased the extent of the board's manipulation, previously hidden layers of economic sabotage, pushing him deeper into a quagmire of moral dilemma. Each evening at home became an exercise in introspection. Jack debated intensely with himself, questioning whether the truths he uncovered were worth the potential shattering of his professional world. Returning to his living room, he noted the worn map hanging on his wall depicting the journey of his life. The framing of his past accomplishments felt dated and meaningless in light of the existential battle within the boardroom. One night, driven by sleeplessness, Jack picked up a phone he hadn't touched in years. It was his Uncle S., a man who had been a mentor and guardian since childhood. "Uncle Fred, do you ever think you did the right thing?" he asked, feeling vulnerable and raw. The response was simple yet profound. "What you must ask yourself, Jack, is not should I, but can I live with myself if I don't?" Their conversation spiraled through the night, a counsel that saw Jack rekindle the embers of determination within him. This wasn't just about Emily anymore. It was a personal crusade against corruption. With newfound clarity, Jack began formulating a plan, one that intertwined his principles and future. Outside, the Silver City skyline glimmered under the stars. He could already hear the echoes of potential consequences, but the distance between ambition and integrity shortened. As the sun rose the next day, a definitive path crystallized in his mind. He would confront the board, unearthing a hidden truth they thought buried, fortifying his resolve to not back down, no matter the repercussions. The time had come to face the real villain, one that thrived on ignorance and power. But as Jack stepped into the boardroom once again, a chilling thrum of anxiety unfurled within him. He couldn't ignore the dueling voices in his mind, questioning everything he believed. The battle was intensifying, and he was determined to emerge triumphant. Little did he know, unseen dangers lurked ready to pounce. What transpired next would not merely determine Emily's fate, but would challenge the very bedrock of Jack's ideals. As he opened the boardroom door, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was not just fighting for the truth. He was about to unveil secrets far darker than corporate ambition. As Jack stepped inside the boardroom, the air thickened as tensions coiled tighter. The long table, normally a place of negotiation and consensus, felt like an altar of sacrifice where he might willingly lay down his career at the expense of integrity. Colleagues glared, their expressions an unsettling mixture of fear and anticipation. Each face reflected the weight of choices made, unethical alliances and decisions veiled in corporate jargon. But today, Jack resolved to expose the truth behind Emily's dismissal. Seated at the table were not just board members. They were embodiments of everything he had come to resent: corruption disguised as authority, loyalty forged through fear. The CEO, a looming figure of ambition and ruthlessness, eyed Jack coldly. "You've made quite a scene," he said, voice coated with a mockery that stung. "I hope you realize the consequences of meddling in matters you barely grasp." "Then enlighten me," Jack challenged, his voice rising above the tension. "Because what I've seen isn't justice. It's a facade that crumbles under scrutiny." His heart raced, pounding in time with his rising courage. The room shifted. Whispers flitted among the members like a startled flock of birds. Jack seized the moment, grounding himself as he spoke. "The investigation into Emily's termination was riddled with inaccuracies. I discovered instances of manipulated reports, implementing strategic scapegoating. It wasn't about her performance, it was about controlling narratives." The truth spilled out, flowing with equal parts determination and disbelief. As he spoke, fragments of his research swirled in his mind like colors on a chaotic canvas, a timeline of events, an outline of deceitful maneuvers. The CEO's brow creased, lips thinning into a grim line. Jack could see that beneath his composed exterior lay a simmering anger. "Are you prepared to stand by these wild claims?" The CEO spat, but Jack didn't waver. He was no longer that hesitant employee searching for validation. He felt the steel within him, a conviction tempered by nights of introspection and hard questions. "Absolutely." After meticulous digging, I unearthed internal communications suggesting a deliberate strategy to eliminate dissenting voices within the firm, starting with Emily. Each word was a blade, cutting through the silence and reaching the soft underbelly of corporate deceit. The moment cracked open like a bell toll, resonating in the ears of everyone present, but the confrontation took a turn as Jack noticed movements out of the corner of his eye. A board member he had casually regarded as a peripheral ally was not as supportive. Caught in a web of complicity, the woman subtly shook her head, shifting her gaze nervously. Jack's stomach twisted. Was this individual also part of the machinery that had discarded Emily? "Do you really believe your crusade will change anything? You might simply be sealing your fate," the stocky secretary warned, her voice low yet echoing the ties binding them all. A moment of doubt filtered into Jack's brave armor. He fought to steady his breath, feeling the weight of every eye, the sharp shards of judgment and disapproval. But somewhere deep within, a flicker ignited. "This isn't just about my job, it's about ethics. If we shake hands with unethical practices, what does that say about us?" Silence fell again, dragging tension like a leaden anchor. Jack stood at a precipice. Would he take the leap, risking everything? Then a new voice broke through, cool and authoritative. "Jack, we hear you, but your assertions require evidence beyond mere conjecture." The board chair intervened, signaling both support and skepticism. Jack hated that he needed to prove his stance, yet it was part of the game. "I've compiled documentation. Enough to back my claims." For once, the world outside the boardroom dims as his focus laser-focused on the challenge ahead, a professional battle that could reshape outcomes. As he reached for the files he had prepared, a shiver danced down his spine. He was about to unveil the truth, much deeper than a botched termination. But what if the truth he unearthed was even more explosive than he'd anticipated? With every passing moment, a new layer of danger crept closer, and the stakes escalated. This wasn't just about Emily anymore. It was about exposing the heart of a corrupt machine. What Jack didn't know was that every revelation came with its own chain of consequences, potentially threatening not just his job but his very identity. Heart pounding, he prepared to present his case, feeling the air thrum with an urgency that felt almost palpable. As he opened his folder, bracing for the fallout, Jack wondered if some truths were better left buried. Would he willingly step deeper into the mire, or would he find a way to emerge unscathed amidst the chaos? Jack steadied his breath, casting a sweeping glance around the boardroom. Each gaze bore into him, probing, judging an audience that craved his downfall. He could sense the collective tension shift towards him as he pulled out the documents that had cost him countless sleepless nights. The crisp pages whispered against each other, as though they were alive, eager to reveal hidden truths. "Here is the evidence," Jack said, forcing command into his voice. Emails exchanged between management leading up to Emily's termination show a clear intent to mislead. This isn't a simple case of incompetence. It's a deliberate cover-up. As he spoke, Jack noticed a glimmer of interest reflected in the board chair's eyes. Perhaps it was the chance of real consequence that had lit their usually dull demeanor. This was a pivotal moment, not just for him, but for everyone who had felt the consequences of corporate negligence masked as ethical decision-making. Interesting claims, the board chair remarked, leaning forward. But until you provide concrete evidence, this remains speculative. You know as well as I do that accusations without proof can lead to repercussions. Jack felt a ripple of uncertainty surge through him. Those words echoed in his mind like a taunt. What if this were just the beginning of his career decline? But within that panic blazed a renewed sense of purpose. The whispers of doubt were drowned out by the steadfast commitment he had unearthed in himself. He couldn't retreat. Retreat was not in his nature anymore. "I'm ready to present," he declared, a newfound ferocity piercing through the shadows of his apprehension. He flipped to the first page, the cacophony of paper unfolding like a curtain revealing a long-hidden stage. These communications show a premeditated strategy designed to scapegoat Emily. Fabricated metrics and altered reports were all part of the charade. The room erupted in murmurs. Jack caught sight of the board member who had shaken her head earlier, her panic palpable as she absorbed the implications of his assertions. Jack's stomach churned at the realization that true allies may be fewer than he hoped. Was this unfolding dissent a result of fear, complicity, or both? "Don't you see?" he pressed, his voice rising above the murmurs. "If we let this slide, we're not just complicit, we're enabling a culture that thrives on dishonesty. What does that mean for us?" He scanned the room, searching for any signs of solidarity, hoping to ignite a shared understanding. "Enough," the CEO finally interjected, his voice low and measured, but laced with a menacing undertone. "You're stepping into dangerous waters, Jack. This is about much more than Emily. It's about reputations. Those who trail you into this reckless line of questioning will bear consequences, too." Jack's pulse quickened. He recognized the veiled threats for what they were: tools of coercion wielded to instill fear and silence. Though his body tensed, he fought against the instinct to recoil. Instead, he leaned into his determination. This was not merely about him. It was about integrity in the face of adversity, about standing firm in the belief that truth mattered more than convenience. "I accept those consequences," Jack replied, fierce conviction enveloping his words. "What good is a reputation if it's built on lies?" With the final pronouncement, he felt a surge of confidence. The clarity of his purpose shone bright against the fog of fear. This wasn't just about Emily, and it was certainly not about silencing him. It was a quest for accountability that shaped the very culture of their organization. But as he locked eyes with the CEO, Jack feared for the fallout. What would this cost him? Would he find himself not only out of a job, but alienated from colleagues? The tension in the room felt taut like a tightly wound string, elastic and dangerous, ready to snap at any moment. As he prepared to delve deeper into the revelations contained within the folders, an unexpected interruption rattled him. A commotion outside the boardroom door. It echoed like a warning. His resolve was about to be tested in ways he couldn't yet comprehend. What awaited him on the other side could change everything, and as he took a deep breath to steady himself, he couldn't shake the feeling that not all truths were meant to be uncovered. Would revealing them be liberating, or would it lead to his undoing? The door swung open, and the sharp sound of footsteps echoed in the boardroom, cutting through the tension that had wrapped itself around Jack like a suffocating shroud. In walked Sarah, a junior analyst whom Jack had mentored. Her face, typically bright with enthusiasm, was now pale and strained, her demeanor holding the weight of impending bad news. "Jack, we need to talk," she said, her voice steady but urgent. His heart raced as he gestured for her to continue, momentarily pulling his attention from the board members whose expressions indicated a shift towards confusion and wariness. "Please, just a moment," he said, hoping the board would pause its judgment long enough for him to gather more information. Sarah leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "It's about the emails. I've seen something that you need to know. Something worse than what you think." Jack's mind raced. What else could there be? The precarious pile of evidence he had gathered already felt like a house of cards, and he could only imagine what flaw could knock it down. "Is it about management?" he asked, trying to conceal the panic in his voice. She nodded, fidgeting slightly, the way she always did when she was anxious. "I found an email thread buried in an old project folder. It's dated just days before Emily was let go. It shows that the decision wasn't just about the metrics you pointed out. It was broader. Once I read it, I realized the connections to something much larger." Jack felt his chest tighten. The boardroom, the looming confrontation, the stakes, it all felt like a wild storm he was navigating without a compass. "Sarah, I can't afford to lose this momentum," he urged, his voice low but firm. "You're sure about what you saw? We need every scrap of evidence." She nodded again, her determination gleaming through her trepidation. "I'll send it to you immediately. But, Jack, be careful. It's not just about Emily. If you dig deeper, there are more powerful people involved. This could backfire." Jack took her warning seriously, even as adrenaline surged through him. The challenge had shifted. It was now not just about exposing a flawed decision, but unraveling an elaborate scheme that trapped others in a web of deceit. "Thank you, Sarah," he said, locking eyes with her. "You're brave for coming to me. I'll handle this." As she moved towards the door, the board members were visibly shifting in their seats, a mixture of intrigue and concern etched on their faces. For the first time, Jack felt a crack of unity. Perhaps they too were uneasy about where the truth would take them. "Now," Jack said, pausing to collect his thoughts before refocusing on the room. "The real question is, what happens next? Do we choose complicity or join the risk?" "This isn't a game," the CEO barked, his voice slicing through Jack's resolve. Discontent simmered visibly as he leaned forward. "Take your revelations and realize what they could cost you, personally." Jack met the CEO's piercing gaze without flinching. The stakes remained high. This was a moment beckoning him to step beyond fear into something transformative. As the murmurs resumed, Jack could hear his own heartbeat echoing in his ears, reminder of his rising resolve. He was straddling the line between his career and the ethics he had invoked. Would he seize this opportunity to forge a new path for himself and potentially salvage the integrity of his workplace, or would he step back into the shadows? Just as he began to formulate his next argument, the phone on the table buzzed to life, a notification from Sarah. The email's subject line sent a chill through him. About the hidden truths you didn't expect." Was he clutching a key to his future, or had he just opened Pandora's box? The unfolding chapters of this story seemed set to unveil deeper mysteries, secrets threading into his very identity and ambitions. As Jack prepared to face the next phase of this tense endeavor, he braced himself for what the truth might demand of him and what it could ultimately destroy. Jack's fingers trembled as he opened Sarah's email, a sense of foreboding crawling over him. He read quickly, his heart thumping loudly in his ears. The email revealed not just details about Emily's termination, but hinted at a convoluted network of decisions that reached beyond their department. There were names mentioned, dates, and implications that threatened the entire organization. He felt a mixture of dread and exhilaration. This was the kind of discovery that could reshape everything. But the warning Sarah had given about powerful individuals wasn't lost on him. He had heard horror stories of careers derailed due to taking a stand against those at the top. He was at a crossroads, and the choice before him could define who he was about to become. As the board members shifted their attention back to him, Jack knew he had to proceed carefully. The CEO's gaze felt like a spotlight, blinding, scrutinizing. He cleared his throat and adjusted his posture, digging deep for the composure he had painstakingly built over the years. "Let's get to the facts then," he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. He outlined the metrics they'd previously discussed, aware of the critical importance of framing his argument with data first, allowing the emotional aspect to weave in later. The board listened, some nodding along, while others appeared restless. Then came the moment his pulse quickened as he broached the subject of the hidden emails. "But I've uncovered something that shifts the narrative entirely. It has implications for all of us, and it's not merely about Emily's termination." There are deeper issues surrounding management decisions that need to be addressed, and we have to be willing to confront them. The silence in the room was palpable. He could feel the tension, a cocktail of curiosity and fear, brewing around him as he laid out the broader circumstances surrounding Emily's firing. Jack even noticed a few board members exchanging glances, a subtle acknowledgement of the unspoken concern gripping them all. However, just as he felt momentum building, the CEO interrupted. "You tread on dangerous ground, Jack. Be careful not to inscribe your own legacy with sensationalism. This could cost you." His mind raced with the potential consequences of the CEO's words. Was this a thinly veiled threat? An attempt to pull him back into compliance? For a fleeting moment, doubt crept in, but Jack squashed it. He had gathered information, seen connections that others had missed, and he wasn't about to let fear dictate his actions. Jack forced himself to breathe deeply and chose his next words deliberately. "I've seen enough to know that we owe it to Emily and to ourselves to ensure that this company is held accountable for its actions. If we ignore what hides in the shadows, we risk losing not only our employees, but our integrity." The CEO's expression hardened. A flicker of annoyance crossed his features. Jack prepared himself for a retort, focusing instead on the passion bubbling inside him. He drew strength from the unfolding revelations, solidifying this moment not only as a call to action, but a significant pivot in his quest for personal growth. The room began to hum, quiet discussions taking shape among board members as murmurs of dissent and agreement mixed. People began to ask questions not just about Emily, but about the process, the culture, the ethics. However, Jack wasn't finished. There was still something vital he needed to address. With resolve coursing through him, he continued. "And if we're going to break down the walls of complacency, we need to dismiss the notion of protecting our own jobs over doing what's right. I'll not stand idle while others pay the price for our inaction. We can either choose complicity or rise together." As the words left his mouth, he felt a shift. This was the crucial moment where he stepped not just into defiance, but into leadership, a role he had long coveted, but feared he could never fulfill. He wasn't just a cog in the machine. He had the potential to catalyze change. And then something unexpected happened. One board member leaned forward, a glimmer of support in their eyes. Another nodded slightly as if opening a door to a new dawn. But as he felt the threads of defiance weaving through the room, a sudden ping on his phone shattered the burgeoning solidarity. It was a new message from Sarah, the subject line reading, "New evidence suggests someone inside is already aware." Had he stirred the pot too vigorously? Suddenly, the ground beneath him felt unsteady, and Jack realized this might not be just about him or the board or even Emily. The stakes were rising, and Jack was standing at the precipice of something larger than he had imagined. The path ahead would not be easy. What had he truly unleashed by shedding light on these hidden truths? With questions swirling and uncertainty looming, Jack braced himself, knowing he had ignited a fire that could consume much more than he anticipated. Would he be ready to face the consequences, no matter how deeply they cut? The answer felt unclear, and in that uncertainty lay a profound challenge. Jack's gut twisted as he read the message from Sarah, the weight of her warning settling heavily on him. Someone within these walls was aware of the turmoil that brewed beneath the surface, a realization that heightened both his anxiety and determination. The sense of urgency amplified the stakes in an already tense environment. "Jack, is everything all right?" one of the board members asked, concern etched across their face. He swallowed hard, parsing through the potential implications of Sarah's email while wishing he could superimpose a sense of calm over the chaos. "Yes, just reaffirming the points we must address," he replied, forcing a steadiness into his voice. Yet, internally, doubts waged a war against his ambition. Was he truly prepared for the repercussions of his discovery? Could he stand firm if an internal conflict charged their already divided boardroom? The CEO's silence felt like a countdown, a relentless reminder that time was not on Jack's side. He sensed the impending showdown. His voice would either rally support or incite a backlash, willing to protect the company's established hierarchy. "What if you've placed us all in jeopardy?" another board member murmured, a hint of trepidation staining their tone. The once thought supportive murmurs transformed into whispers of doubt, splintering the sense of solidarity Jack had just begun to cultivate. Jack's thoughts raced. Could they afford to turn a blind eye to the rot if it meant preserving their own sense of security? The notion of self-preservation gripped him, the gnawing fear turning to resolve. He was done letting fear dictate his choices. He remembered Emily's resigned face, the consequences of silence reflected in her story, which was now linked inexorably to his. "I understand the risks involved," Jack declared, his tone firm. "But turning away from this will cost us much more in the long run. The culture of secrecy festers beneath us, and if we don't confront it now, it will break down the very foundations of our organization." The board members shifted, tension palpable. He sensed their internal debates as they weighed the risks against the prospect of exposing the truth. Doubt remained their fortress, but Jack was poised to dismantle it, piece by piece. Then, unexpectedly, one of the members, Lynette, rose to her feet. "Jack is right," she announced, conviction coloring her tone. "This isn't just about us, it's about what we stand for moving forward. If we allow fear to dictate our actions, we relinquish our values, not just to Emily, but to ourselves." A swell of agreement flowed through the room, and Jack seized the moment. He felt the embers of their collective spirit ignite, prompting him to push further. "If we allow ourselves to be silenced, we do Emily a disservice and undermine every employee's right to feel secure." It was as if he had handed out kites in a storm, urging them to join him in soaring against the winds of caution. Now was the time for action, a lesson learned from his quiet observations over the years, a reminder that courage might lead to more than just personal triumph. It could rewrite the culture of a company, but as a wave of support rose, another ping broke through the din in the room. Jack glanced at his phone. It was another message from Sarah, this time with an attachment. What more could she possibly have unearthed? Each revelation skinned away another layer of his composure. Uncertainty flooded back, mixed with a heightened apprehension of the unknown. As he opened the attachment, he felt the board's attention hover over his shoulder. The CEO caught his gaze, an eyebrow arching. The tension renewed, a clear challenge igniting between the two. Had he indeed provoked hidden dangers? Jack inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of the moment, the potential for betrayal now almost as tangible as the promises of support. The directive was clear. He stood not just to risk his position, but possibly even his safety. The fear of reprisal loomed, contrasting sharply with the newfound sense of purpose coursing through him. "Let me show you something," Jack said, showing the attachment on his phone, poised to reveal deepening secrets, while aware there was no turning back now. What had been uncovered might not only shatter their perceptions, but test the very fabric of alliances formed. What truths lay hidden within the document? Would they pull together against an uncertain foe, or would the suspicion unravel their newfound unity? Jack braced for what was about to unfold, one revelation, shaping the crossroads he now stood upon. Jack took a steadying breath and turned the phone toward the gathering. The attachment displayed a series of messages that detailed the dismissals of employees under dubious circumstances, including Emily's. The words flickered like a glaring neon sign, turning the room's atmosphere electric. Their eyes widened, uncertainty rippling through the board members. Jack could feel the power of his vulnerability morph into a form of currency. What had initially caused him anxiety now surged as fortitude. He was not just stating the obvious. He was unveiling a trap, a web of deceit that had ensnared them all. As murmurs resonated, Jack remained focused. "This isn't merely about Emily. This reflects on all of us, our decisions, our responsibilities. If we shrink back now, we will inevitably become complicit in this culture of silence." The stakes danced around him like flares in the night, illuminating potential paths and pitfalls. The CEO leaned forward, a mask of concentration plastered on his features, but Jack could see the crack forming. Doubt was a contagion, and he was determined to spread it. What's clear here is that these actions were not just random decisions. They were calculated moves meant to maintain a facade of control and dominance. At what cost? Jack watched the shift occurring within the group. Some eyes sparked with anger, others with fear. One by one, They began to question the integrity of the leadership they had blindly followed for far too long. The energy morphed from supportive dissent to a collective awakening, exposing not just a toxic organizational culture, but igniting a fierce desire for change. What are we doing to ourselves by remaining passive? Lynette echoed his sentiments, her voice gaining strength with every syllable. This is a moment of truth, one that requires us to choose integrity over complacency. We owe Emily this much. Lynette's remarks sent a ripple of solidarity among the board members. Jack felt a rush of validation, a reaffirmation that he was not alone in this fight. Each nod of agreement infused him with an urgent need to capitalize on this shared revelation and opportunity, not just to change the fate of a few, but to redefine what their company stood for. However, shadows of doubt loomed large. In the eyes of some, he noticed a flicker of fear. What if we're wrong? One voice whispered. What if we lose everything? Jack's heart pounded as he bore the weight of their concern. Consider what we stand to lose by choosing silence, he replied, his voice steady despite the unease tightening around him. This is not merely about our jobs, it's about reclaiming our integrity. If we allow fear to dictate our actions today, we condemn our future. With the air heavy with tension and anticipation, he took a calculated risk. We must confront the CEO. We need to demand clarity, accountability, and a commitment to change. The realization hit him. It wasn't enough to expose the truth, they had to act on it. The board members exchanged glances, some contemplative, others resolute. Jack could see the lines of division starting to blur as they collectively recognized the precipice upon which they stood. His gut twisted again, but this time with determination. In that moment, he felt the profound weight of leadership settle on him, the courage to guide, to inspire the others to stand firm against the tide of resistance. But as he prepared to rally support for a confrontation, another ping came from his phone. This time, it was a video attachment from Sarah. His heart dropped. What further revelation awaited? What new information could possibly reshape their resolve? Would the board be ready to fully commit to this unraveling journey, or would this last revelation drive a wedge deep enough to fracture their newfound unity? Jack braced himself for the answer, unsure if it would fortify their cause or further entrench his anxieties. Jack's fingers trembled slightly as he opened the video attachment. The screen blinked to life, revealing Sarah's concerned face. He could see the weight of urgency pressing on her brow. Jack, she began, her words laced with nervous energy. This needs to be seen by the board. I've found something that might be critical. The images behind her flickered ominously, drawing Jack's focus. He leaned in closer, silence shrouding the room as the board members instinctively parted to view the unfolding revelation. Whatever belief they had held about their employer suddenly felt precarious, like an unsuspected tremor beneath the ground. As Sarah delved into the footage, she sorted through what appeared to be a series of recorded conversations, a jagged mosaic of unsettling exchanges. Conversations that dropped hints of collusion and favoritism surrounding the recent layoffs. Here, listen to this, she instructed, her voice steadying with focus. The audio crackled to life, voices layered with tension revealing a blatant disregard for ethics in exchange for maintaining power. Jack clenched his fists, trying to contain rising indignation. He had known this was a possibility, yet hearing it affirmed his worst fears. The CEO's heir and allies were shown discussing how to manipulate the board through fear tactics, ensuring loyalty without regard to justice. The once distant figures suddenly felt like living specters haunting their integrity. A weight settled in Jack's chest. This was more than just corporate foul play, it was a betrayal that went to the core of their company's ethos. We can't ignore this, he stated with renewed conviction. This highlights our own refusal to challenge intimidating leadership, perpetuating a cycle of fear. We need to put an end to this. The board members remained silent, seemingly caught between disbelief and a dawning recognition. Jack's resolve deepened. He sensed fear in their eyes, yet also perhaps for the first time a glimmer of courage. He had ignited something within them. This isn't just about Emily anymore. It's about our values, our rights as employees, and our responsibility to stand against the tide of corruption. Does this material change anything for us in the long run? A voice quivered from the back. Tension thickened the air, and Jack took a moment to synthesize his thoughts. "It can," he responded carefully. "This gives us leverage. If we act now, we can restructure our organization's future. We have the potential to redefine what it means to be leaders in this company." Heads nodded, some still hesitantly, others with vigor. Jack noted the shift in energy, that slow, creeping growth of collective fortitude. His own anxiety sparred with newfound confidence as he recognized the evolution occurring right before him. With strategic precision, he laid out a plan. They needed to compile evidence, confront the CEO with an ultimatum, and demand reforms that addressed the systemic issues haunting their workplace. This is a challenge, but it's also an opportunity to reclaim our narrative. Then, just as they prepared to move forward, the atmosphere shifted again. A loud crash echoed from the hallway. All heads turned in unison, startled by the unexpected disruption. The sudden chaos outside threatened to dismantle their fragile unity. What had happened? Was someone trying to impede their progress? Jack turned back to the board members, eyes roving over each determined face. Could they hold the line against whatever was about to burst inside? Fear gripped him again, but there was also a flicker of determination. It was the moment to confront the storm head-on, whatever it might bring. He could barely breathe as the next seconds stretched into an eternity. Would they rise to meet the chaos? Or would this turbulent moment break their newfound resolve? Jack prepared himself, heart racing. The real test was only just beginning. As the door swung open, the clamor from the hallway poured inside like an uninvited guest. Jack's gaze darted to the courageous faces of his colleagues. They were teetering on the edge of transformation, but this disruption threatened to push them over the precipice. An air of uncertainty hung between them, the tension palpable and daring. Then, as swiftly as it began, the noise died down. Sarah stepped through the threshold, her usually exuberant presence now replaced by a determined focus. "Jack, I just spoke to Emily," she declared, breathless but unwavering. She's willing to share her story. We can amplify her experience, gather support from others affected. It's time the real narrative came to light. A hushed excitement rippled through the boardroom. In that moment, Jack recognized the shift. This wasn't just about undermining corruption, it was about advocating for those silenced. "Then let us include her testimony as part of our stand," he asserted, newfound confidence buoying each word. "Her truth is just as powerful. We can't just confront the CEO without addressing the broader implications of our culture." The room crackled with determination as he continued, the contours of courage sharpened. "This journey is about more than individual accountability. It's about reshaping our institutional identity." With each articulation, he felt the fragments of fear dissolve, replaced by a potential that resonated deeper than the insecurities that once clung to him. The board members nodded, a collective recognition blooming among them. They were understanding, not victims to the system, but co-authors in reshaping its narrative. Jack took a step forward, feeling the urgency for action quicken within them. "Let us prepare a formal statement," he said, outlining our collective commitment to reset our company's trajectory toward honesty and transparency. With tentacles of resolve intertwining around them, the group began drafting a unified address, clarity driving the words they scribed together. Jack wasn't just leading, he was harnessing the momentum of a shared purpose, each contribution cementing bonds that had previously been buried beneath constraints of fear. Later that day, as the board gathered for an emergency meeting with the CEO, Jack stood by Emily, their joint vulnerability now a shared strength. No longer the uncertain employee, but a leading voice of clarity, he felt fortified by her support. When the CEO strolled in, the atmosphere shifted conspicuously. Jack was uplifted by the newfound aura of solidarity around him. "We need to talk about the actions taken against Emily and the broader implications on our workplace environment," Jack began, taking an assertive stance. The CEO paused, taken aback by the unified front. "Do you believe this will change anything? You are risking your careers by speaking out." The defiance in Jack's voice surprised even him as he replied, "The risk of complicity far outweighs that of standing up. We intend to ensure that our workplace maintains integrity moving forward." A flicker of concern crossed the CEO's face as the weight of their conviction bore down on him. "You really believe this will bear fruit?" Jack responded with solid conviction. "The only way to create change is to demand it." After what felt like an eternity of deliberation, the CEO's hardened expression began to thaw. The realization set in Jack had turned the tide. When he left the room that day, a wave of accomplishment washed over him. He had embraced the fear and transformed it into action, gaining respect and fortitude not just for himself, but for his colleagues who once felt voiceless. Emily's story was to be documented, her silencing reversed, and every person who felt unseen now would be recognized. Jack had conquered more than just a corporate tempest. He had emerged as a leader who redefined his values. With his voice solidified within the organization, he felt a renewed purpose fueling him. He wasn't just a cog in the machine. He was a guiding force steering it toward justice, forging a genuinely refreshing paradigm. As he walked away, he felt a solid confidence. The nurturing of principles over ambition had paid off not just in personal triumph, but in actualizing change. Jack Thompson had proved to himself that integrity could indeed lead to extraordinary dividends, far richer than he had ever anticipated. The revolution had begun, and it all initiated from one pivotal choice: the choice to stand for the truth, driven by the conviction to advocate for what was right. Jack had achieved something greater than recognition. He found a profound purpose and personal fulfillment that would guide him throughout his career and beyond. Now's the time to reflect. You need to subscribe now to witness more stories of empowerment, growth, and personal transformation. This is the moment to show your support for the channel. Click like now to feed the algorithm and keep this journey alive. Comment below your thoughts on Jack's resolve and share your theories on what comes next. And don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your engagement fuels stories like Jack's, showcasing the power of personal integrity and growth. Be part of this community dedicated to uplifting voices that matter.